All right, it looks like that's gone live. Let's see, we're waiting for everything to go live. Takes a couple seconds. Oh, okay. So that's live. I think Facebook is almost live. We're just waiting on YouTube and maybe X. Okay, we're live on YouTube. And there we go. All right. Awesome. Everyone is here. We're ready to go. It's been a week. So a couple of notes first. One, I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I'll most likely cough at some point. As always with my colds that I get every so often, and especially typical of fall, I always get a dry cough that lingers for like 3 weeks later and drives me absolutely insane. So my wife, because she's awesome, already has the green tea ready with the honey, and sometimes it's lime, not this one though. But so that's going to help me a bit, but just want to give you a heads up on that. Of course, we have the Mets game getting ready to come on. So if I lose my insanity, that's why. Because we be keeping an eye on that. And by the way, Fox constantly is trying to bash the Mets. I don't get it, but I hope they all burn. So there we go. Especially, I mean, you got two Yankees and a Red Sox. Really? Really? Okay, whatever. But more important news. The winter forecast is coming. I know everyone's been asking. I have most of it written. I just got to go over it, spelling errors, make sure things make sense. I have all of the details that we're setting up, and then I'll go through it and add a couple more things. But the expectation is that the winter forecast will be released on Monday, and we'll have a live chat to cover everything about the winter and what I'm thinking we're going to be seeing and what to expect, what are some of the wild cards on Wednesday. So live chat on Wednesday should be pretty exciting. So if you have friends and family that are very interested to find out what's going on with the winter, definitely check out the live chat for next week. And of course, we'll have the public forecast available on the public website, which is basically just the forecast. And then the premium discussion will include all the technical details, all the really juicy stuff. So, which we'll go over some of that in the live chat. But if you really want to sit down, read the heart of it and get into some of the real dynamics of the seasonal pattern, we're definitely going to enjoy that and check that out. And that'll be on the premium section. You'll be able to find it on the top when you log in. It'll be a link. And of course, in the premium section under the seasonal forecast. And of course, where we currently have the fall forecast on the link on top, you'll be able to find it there. So that's going to be fun. Some other news. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Once again, I will tell you, we do not name winter storms. A certain organization has already put out a list for winter storms. We don't name winter storms. Why don't we name winter storms? Well, a 2-inch snowfall in Syracuse is a dusting. It's not that big of a deal. No one cares. But 2 inches of snow in Atlanta, Georgia, well, shuts everything down for 3 weeks, and it's like the apocalypse. So the reason why you can name tropical systems is no matter where they impact, the impacts are the same. And so the idea, the reason why we started naming storms is so that they're easy to categorize and easy to follow, especially when you have shipping lanes. And at the time, you didn't have the chance to, pick out all these individual storms out in the Atlantic and the Pacific. So naming them was easier to follow. That's why we originally did it. It wasn't because we wanted to make marketing. Okay? So, with that said, you don't name winter storms because there's no consistent impact features. 2 inches of snow in one location is not that big a deal compared to another location. Or what do you do with lake effect snow bands? You got 3 feet of snow. Is that not a snowstorm? Sure as hell feels like it, but it's a different dynamics, different driving mechanisms. So do you name it or do you not? So this is why we should avoid this altogether, and those that name storms I will simply ignore. So if you say, hey, it's winter storm Bob, I'm going to say, no, it's a winter storm. There is no Bob. What about Bob? Bob left. There is no Bob. Move forward. Move on. So I just wanted to share that. So with that, tonight, I will, of course, be answering your questions to the best of my ability. And we'll go over some of the things going on in the tropics. I mean, look, to be dead honest with you, there's not a lot to talk about tonight. It really isn't. The pattern is as dead as it can possibly be. And unfortunately, we really need the rain. We really, really need the rain. But unfortunately, not much is going to be on the way anytime soon. So let's take a look at some of the data, and then we'll answer some of your questions, and we'll see where we're at. And again, in case some of you just coming in, just so you know, winter forecast on the way for Monday, live chat next week, all about the winter forecast. So I'll be able to answer a lot of your questions and go from there. Meanwhile, in the tropics, not a lot. No named storms, none. I know that there were some people running around social media calling for the next Nadine. There is no Nadine. Anywhere, none, zero, zip, zilch, nothing. The model guidance, because the GFS is always very accurate 15 days out, was focusing on this feature here, developing and then lifting up into the Gulf of Mexico. That's not going to happen. Why? First of all, you have this cold front boundary here with a whole lot of dry air. Dry air and cold front boundaries do not interact very well with tropical systems. So this is going to meander out here in the Caribbean as a 20% chance of developing over the next 7 days. And then vertical wind shear starts to increase over this region after that 7-day period. So, not likely. Now, what about the next one? Clearly, this is a blockbuster storm. Not exactly. This is a tropical wave with an elongated area low pressure. This feature actually was more developed, more organized 2 days ago. It had a nice, tight, low-level circulation, but not much convection. Now it has convection, but the circulation is very elongated and displaced. So part of that is because what happens is that you get this latent heat release, and you get some troughing to the north and east of this convection, which is kind of a balance in the atmosphere. And so the low-pressure system actually gets deformed because of the convective development. This feature is moving through the most favorable atmospheric conditions that this thing's going to see going forward. After it gets past the northern Leeward Islands, it's running into all this shear. And when it runs into all that shear, it's going to get torn apart. So anything that forms out here is either going to get ripped to the northeast or shoved to the south over Hispaniola and Cuba and get torn apart. Any way you slice it, it's not looking good in terms of any type of organized development. Now, when we look at this and we consider these factors, let's see what the model guidance looks like. Well, when you look at this, a lot of key things to point out. First of all, no strong low pressure systems. Up here is the key, right? And so when you're normally looking for like strong hurricanes or even strong tropical storms, you're kind of looking for this level for tropical storms and these levels for hurricanes. And then this would be like your major hurricanes, right? That's one. As you can see here, our tropical wave remains in this level, 1,000 to 1,010 millibars. That's barely a tropical depression, very weak, very disorganized, and a lot of the model guidance takes it right into Hispaniola, so not looking all that impressive. A couple do develop it into a tropical storm, and then shoots it out into the northern Atlantic, where at this point it becomes more extratropical than anything else. The other feature down here, again, remains relatively weak, and that is about it. So no sign of any type of strong low pressure system. Notice over the next 10 days, no sign of any track anywhere in the Gulf of Mexico or over the Western Atlantic and East Coast. And Pete Alonso shut down the most overrated pitch hitter in baseball, Ohtani, whatever. But he's not an MVP. He's just a clown, and a gambling clown at that. So, not really seeing any type of major development here. And if these two don't develop, look off to the east. There's nothing coming off of the African coast. No low pressure system, no intense organization. There is no major storm. None. Zero. So we're really moving into a very quiet period. After an active period where we had our burst, which really you needed in order to get to an average season at this point, we're kind of backing off and we're not seeing a lot of activity. Why is that the case? Our MJO. When the MJO is in these phases, these to a lot of sinking air over the Eastern Atlantic and over Africa. So you're not getting as many tropical waves. You don't have as favorable of an environment. You increase vertical wind shear. You increase a lot of subsidence. This is not a period of strong support for active activity in the Atlantic. When we're reactive, out here. 8-1. This is when we're active. We're going to be nowhere near that anytime soon. So, going through October, I think it stays quiet. We'll have to keep an eye on November, because the MJO beyond this point could be a bit untrustworthy. The long range guidance really doesn't show anything impressive, but again, we'll have to keep an eye on it, because we don't want to let our guard down. But as we go through November, the areas that we're going to focus on really are in the Western Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. And we can see that influence right here. You see, we start to see a little bit more support towards the end of the month, maybe around the Caribbean. Excuse me. But we don't see anything that's impressive, right? Or anything that really drives strong intensification. So all our tropical waves are basically getting killed before they come off the coast of Africa. So pretty quiet. Now, with all this going on, are we going to see any change to this dry weather pattern? What I've been keeping an eye on is the EPO. I want to say something really uplifting and positive. Like, yeah, we'll see a change. No. Not really. The EPO right now is going to drop negative and then trend back towards positive and then kind of waver around negative. The wavelength this time of year really kind of forces a trough right along the West Coast and a broad ridge over the eastern United States. One of the things that we could study is the PNA. And as long as it's staying in a negative state throughout the rest of October and pushing into the mid-November for the most part, the harder it is to develop any strong storms for us. So what's going to need to change? Well, quite frankly, what needs to change is our tropical forcing. Right now, the MJO, not really all that supportive, okay? And we're in the process of developing our La Nina, which we'll talk about a lot next week. Until we get a fundamental change in the tropical forcing and we reduce the influence of the MJO, we are not going to see a wet weather pattern. And with it taking on La Nina, that storm track is either going to be focused over us or to the northwest of us. So, I don't see a lot of support yet for major heavy rainfall events. I do see the support once we get to mid-November, once we get the establishment of La Nina, of us at least trending back towards near normal. So at the very least, we'll prevent it from getting any worse. But we have to get through October. October is very dry, very quiet, not much going on. And you can see that very nicely here in the long-range guidance. Not a lot of change. Generally mild conditions for much of the rest of fall. And you can see we don't really see any changes in our precipitation potential until we get to the middle of November and late November. So let's say mid-November through Thanksgiving, we'll see at the very least near normal precipitation events. But not enough to reduce the deficits that we're going to have. So unfortunately, I'm not seeing a lot of changes in this. Now, one thing that is interesting with this La Nina that's developing, can I give you a little bit of a sneak peek? This La Nina is going to be weak, which means our subtropical jet stream is going to be more active, which means even though the storm tracks are going to be La Nina-like, they're going to be moisture loaded because they're going to be filled with a lot of tropical moisture coming in from the subtropical jet stream. So that could be a saving grace there on many, many fronts. So we'll see how that plays out. But I would love to say, hey, look, there's a big change coming on. There isn't. And unfortunately, when we take a look at our overall pattern, I mean, right now, we have cool, crisp conditions. We still are under the influence of our polar air mass. It's going to be changing a bit. You can see the northwesterly winds providing very nice tranquil weather conditions. Temperatures in the lower to mid 40s over the northern interior. A few upper 30s are already showing up in eastern Pennsylvania. I think this is around Hazleton. Let's see here. Lehigh, PA. Okay. So it's right around that airport. Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, it's still 54. But anyway, you can kind of feel the chill in the air out there, right? And let's see. The real MVP is up to bat, by the way. And they tried to hit him. So, cowards. Let's see here. On the radar, not much going on. Very quiet. Now, let me refresh this real fast. This is our upper level winds. We have an upper level low that's trying to form. Now, there were some people asking me, hey, couldn't this storm retrograde to the west and bring us rainfall on the coast? Here's why, even if you see that on mild guidance, not to believe it. You see the observations here? Almost a home run. Oh, well. You see these observations? You see this ridge here? It's all about the wavelengths. When you have a trough on the west coast here that is pushing into the Rockies, this pushes everything to the east. This whole pattern pushes everything to the east. So even if you get this upper level low to rapidly intensify and strengthen, which it will, all of the lifting parameters, all of the forcing, all the best dynamics, all get forced out in the Atlantic. So you'll see increase in cloud cover. That's about it. Because everything gets kicked out. And then this ridge basically dominates all the way through the next 7 days. And so that's what we're starting to see here. You're starting to see nice cloud development here with our low pressure system starting to take hold. Our short wave starting to dig here. You can see the dry air coming in, the moisture getting pulled, low pressure system developing, but everything's getting forced out in the Atlantic. So we miss out on a storm because the pattern over the west coast is too progressive. And so with that progressive nature, no threat for rainfall. And so what you end up with at 500 millibars is the upper level low gets pushed out. Again, notice where all the lifting is out here in the Atlantic. We remain dry. And then this ridge continues to dominate really almost all the way through next week. We get a weak trough coming through. This will produce maybe an isolated shower. That's about it on next Wednesday. Other than that, nothing. Nothing. We don't see any significant changes. And this type of pattern basically is zonal. So you get a lot of Pacific air masses aggressively moving through. Not much in the way of any type of deep moisture. In fact, here, let me pull up the precipitable water values. No real deep moisture involved here at all. Excuse me.
Don't forget the tea.
Yeah, sorry. Struggling. But the overall thing, there's no deep moisture, nothing at all over the next 10 days to support any significant rainfall. And even at 700 millibars, this tells me a lot of mix of sun and clouds. No widespread overcast cloud cover at all. And as far as our 850 millibar temperatures, basically we're experiencing the coldest conditions right now over the next 10 days. Then after that, pretty much a Pacific dominated air mass with temperatures moderating to near to slightly above normal. And you can see the result of that on our surface map. I mean, just being honest, it is as quiet as you could possibly get. Good for writing a long-range seasonal forecast. Bad to have any type of an hour long discussion on anything at this point.
Good for the places that are recovering from.
Yes, that's very true. Very, very good for everyone recovering from all of these hurricanes and whatnot. So that is certainly that is a great point, Susan. That is a great point. Florida can recover. North Carolina can recover. Georgia can recover with this pleasant weather conditions. For us, again, this right here is probably overplayed. Most likely just a few isolated showers the next Saturday. So again, nothing significant. So really, that's a lot I have to talk about. Next week, we'll have a ton to talk about because we'll have the winter forecast to go over. And
hopefully we'll have your cough more under control too.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed on that. Knowing my history, these coughs for me just last forever. And if I go to a doctor, they tell me, well, you have a cough.
So helpful.
Yes. All those years of college and medical school, you have a cough. I know that. Now we're going to charge you $400. So green tea. Lots of tea. Lots of honey. So we're going to take some questions. First from the premium members, then we'll go to social media. We'll answer all of them. If we don't have any more left, then we'll call it a night. And if we have more, then we'll answer all of them. So let's dive into this. Let's see here. Will nor'easter pattern establish itself by mid-November? Okay, key thing here with this pattern, I'm just going to say La Niñas in general. La Niñas typically don't support nor'easters. El Niños usually are more nor'easter. Okay, El Niños usually support a lot of Miller A storms, and La Niña typically supports more Miller B storms. So if you're looking for one of those storms that marches right up the coast, that's typically in an El Nino or in a neutral pattern. Any chance one of these southeast screamer cold fronts and squall line events at the end of this pattern? I don't really see any type of support for that at this time. But most likely in November, you always have a strong cold front creating something like that. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. Surprised the live chat wasn't moved to another day. It's hard to pick another day. Not to mention, hey, look, I got other things that go on in the evenings. I pick one evening. I try to keep it consistent because I have other things going on in my life beyond that. So hopefully I won't lose my voice, though. That is a good point.
I will do my best.
There is a pretty nasty respiratory infection going around. Caught it myself. Feel like crud and cough sucks. Yeah. TBS hates the Yankees. I've heard a lot of complaints about that, too. Hope that people have gotten after the past couple of years with polar vortex stretching and splitting that location matters. Absolutely. Location absolutely matters. We'll talk about that a lot next week. A time of year where the GFS goes from spinning up phantom Cat 5 hurricanes to major blizzards. I'd say we're about 3 weeks away from the first major blizzard social media posting from the GFS. Most likely focused for New England. No name for winter storms. Amen. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous practice. Going to end up with a lot of virga that doesn't actually reach the ground in these conditions. Absolutely. The boundary layer is very warm. There just isn't a lot going on here. What we need is a slow-moving extratropical storm with a persistent easterly wind and just a lot of steady, moderate rainfall. That's what we need to really break this pattern. Are you impressed with the snow growth so far this year? I've been reading a lot that the Pacific Jet is already showing signs that it's going to be rough going for snow lovers. Excuse me, let me get more tea. Okay. Snow growth in Siberia has been healthy. Snow growth in Canada has not. We'll talk about that more. With the La Nina, you're going to have a Pacific Jet. And you're going to have mild periods. There's no way to get around that. That's what I'm going to touch on for now. I'll stay for that. That's pretty much it. I will say this. Anyone that, quote unquote, cancels winter is an idiot. Period. Anyone that makes that post as a meteorologist is someone you should not follow. Because basically what they're doing is letting your guard down and then blindsiding you when there is a winter weather pattern storm. But we'll talk about that more as we move forward. Let's check out YouTube, see what we got here. Let's see here. With the QBO expected to be in a westerly phase during the winter of 24-25, could this favor a mild winter for eastern United States? I will answer that next week. That's a next week question. Let's see here. What is the pricing for being a premium member? Right now, $15 a month. That's it. Or $108 for the whole year. Safe to say the rest of October will be very warm. Yeah, October is going to end mild and quiet. Not much going on. Perfect for trick or treating. That's about it. Is it ever going to rain again? Yes. We'll get a wet pattern eventually, and then we're going to be wondering when is it going to stop. Do you have any other questions on X or?
X. You alright? You okay, honey?
Ow. Yeah.
X, we have Go Mets.
Yeah, pretty much. Go Mets, absolutely. Anything on Facebook or anything?
Quiet.
Okay, all quiet. All right, so let's check out what we have here. Card asks, wonder if the subtropical jet, which normally is somewhat a factor in weak La Ninas, will be even more so due to the ongoing high altitude water vapor.
T. Hit the T.
T. Okay, well, I would say that obviously tune in for next week. But I've been saying for quite some time, the weaker this La Nina is, the more likely we'll see an active and juiced up subtropical jet stream. So that would be something that we certainly will be keeping an eye on. So I think I answered all the questions for tonight. This is going to be another short one because there just isn't much going on. And I get... Well, yeah, I'm literally coughing, choking on myself. Yeah, fun. And also, obviously, the rest of the questions are going to be about the winter forecast. So we'll call it a night before I die.
I won't let that happen.
We'll call it a night. We'll load up. I want you to load up. I'm going to give you a little bit of homework tonight. I'll give you a little bit of homework tonight. Develop all your questions for the winter forecast. And get ready. We're going to have a long live chat next week. to going over everything with the winter forecast. Other than that, I think tonight we'll call it a night. And as always,
Peek at the supermoon.
take a peek at the supermoon, absolutely. And as always, stay safe out there.